grade 10s, I'm going to discuss with you the last kind of relationship that we need to cover. Just to go back there, we have done constant or fixed relationships. We have done increasing linear, indirect proportion, and we've done increasing linear, not indirect proportion. And we come to the fourth type, which is inverse proportion. This is also called indirect, but it gets very confusing with this being direct, so let's just stick to inverse proportion for these relationships. Now, the scenario we'll talk about is the three of you are thinking about doing a trip down to Port Elizabeth to go and view the facilities at NMMU, and you could go alone. So maybe Mr. and Mrs. Bruce would be taking the trip down to PE. Now, if they go alone, the petrol costs would maybe amount to 1,200. That sounds a bit inflated, but don't worry, that's an easy number for me to work with. So let's just say 1,200 for the trip there and back, including some snacks on the way. Now, if it was just Lara that was going, then Lara would have to pay the whole amount. But if she could get 3 friends to come, they could share the cost. So if there were 4 in the car, then the price would be split up. So in inverse proportion, as the one variable increases, so as the number of people increases, the cost would decrease. So when you have a situation where the one variable is increasing and the other decreases, you can immediately think about inverse proportion. So let's have a look at the table. If we have number of people and cost per person, right, if there's only one person, the cost would be 1,200. If there were 2 people, the cost would be 600 Rand each. And if there were 3 people, sorry, you haven't left enough space. If there were 3 people, that would be 400 Rand each. And if there were 4 people, that would be 300 Rand each. So what we're doing here, as you can see, we're splitting the cost between the number of people that are going to go on this trip. Now, let's come to the graph before we look at the equation. So we're going to plot this, and along here we'll have number of people. Our max will only be 4, 1, 2, 3, and 4. And we have to go up to 1,200, so half of that is 600, half of that is 300, and so on. So one person would be 1,200, 2 people would be 600, 3 people would be 400, and 4 people would be 300. Number of people can only be whole numbers. So we have discrete data. Actually, these 4 points are actually the only points we have on our line. But to show our line, we're going to join them with a dotted line, dotted to indicate discrete data. And you see we get a curve. So the fourth kind, the inverse proportion, is always a decreasing curve. That's inverse proportion. Right. Now, what you need to notice is something else very interesting here between your x and y variable. Look what happens if you multiply your x and your y. 1 times 1,200 equals 1,200. 2 times 600 equals 1,200. 3 times 400 equals 1,200, and so on. We call this a constant product. So if we go x times y, we get a constant product. The letter used is k. Now we have to find the constant product in order to make our equation. It's not always given to you. In this scenario, I told you the amount to go down to Port Elizabeth and back was 1,200. So in fact it was given, but it's not always. So to find it, you need to multiply any 2 points here and you'll find the constant product. So let's write an equation to show the cost per person. The cost would be equal to 1,200, there's your constant product, divide by n, where n is your number of people. So it is essential to find your constant product in order to write an equation. Find that first, and then you can divide by a number of people. What if there were 6 people that could fit in the car? We would go 1,200 divided by 6. If the vehicle was large enough, is it possible that the cost could be as little as 100 Rand per person? In other words, how many people would I need to fit in? So if you want to find number of people and you know the cost would be 1,100 each, you can divide by 100 and find you'd need to have 12 people, and then the cost would be 100 Rand each. So whether you're looking for cost or for number of people, you need your constant product divide by the one you have to find the one you don't have. Thank you.